When you recommended a piece to discuss as well, I brought up the Christoph article, knowing again that he's somebody that you respect. So I wanted your take on it. And I was I wasn't really surprised when you said you didn't fully buy what he's saying. I don't either, but I thought it was thought-provoking. I thought he had some pretty interesting comments that I can't, think are fair. Even if I remain more pessimistic than maybe he is. You wanted to talk about this piece, and maybe we'll get to it, but I want to, again, I don't know if you feel like I'm putting you on the spot or not. I keep moving around. My legs are bothering me. You indicated on Facebook that you would be less troubled. Not that you wouldn't be troubled. You'd be less concerned about the future if the new president were Kamala Harris, not Donald Trump. And I'd like you to explain that. I'm not going to challenge you. I'm just going to ask you to explain why.
Only the fact that Kamala is, if she's a Democrat, she's going to go along with the Democratic ideas and policies. And, they're not bad. We've done all right the last few years, even though Trump tries to make it sound like we're in horrible shape. But, economically, we're doing okay. Overall, although, obviously there are problems. But I think mainly I like Kamala Harris because Trump, I think, is the worst possible president we could ever have. He doesn't tell the truth. He doesn't know much. He makes bad decisions. And, that's what scares me the most.
Well, let's just hope he's not as bad as you fear. I won't get into arguing that point. I think there's good reason to be worried about a President Trump, a second term. You did recommend this article. Why did it pique your interest, Arlen?
Well, there is a division in the Republican Party in the Trumpites between these tech titans, all those rich billionaires, the Zuckerbergs, Elon Musk, and Bezos, and all that. And can they get along with the traditional MAGA people who are not as interested in, tech issues, but are more interested in, economic issues as far as their lives and many other areas. And, it'll be interesting to see who eventually comes out on top or if they could coexist together. But there are some differences. I mean, some of those tech people are former liberals and they have some good ideas, but certainly, MAGA is going to push back on a lot of that.
So I'm hearing that you're a little more sympathetic to the billionaires than the working class Republicans. Is that fair to say?
No, it's not. I don't like any of them.
Well, I was playing with you there a little bit, but you did say some of the tech bros were former libs. And so I thought you were implying a certain sympathy for their view, their pro-immigration position, especially with regard to this H-1B visa program. But elucidate then. Tell me what you think.
They basically surrendered. They no longer are willing to stand up to the president, and they're giving him money. They're doing what he's asking for. Like Zuckerberg is, allowing Facebook to say anything they want, whether it's true or not, or how awful or hateful it is. They're all just, giving him everything he wants, and they're trying to curry favor with him. And I don't know if that's a good thing or not, but I don't think it is.
Yeah, I certainly don't like it. With regard to that, I mentioned H-1B visa program. That's a major point in this dispute, right? Is between the sort of the MAGA, the working class folks who you would see at many of the Trump rallies wearing, the Trump. Some might even have like a Trump hair piece on or something of that sort, versus these billionaires who have been acting behind the scenes, although obviously Musk front and center with his DOGE, Department of Government Efficiency, and others. The H-1B visa program is a very sore point between them because the MAGA are the xenophobes. They're the ones who don't want immigration. They don't want immigrants sometimes for very legitimate reasons. The immigrants are more labor. And when you raise the supply of any input, you reduce its price. So when you raise the supply of workers, you reduce the wages that you have to pay those workers because they're competing against each other for scarce work. So that's a very reasonable position, I think, if you're working class. I think the problem is the driver, the reason those people are coming to this country, the workers, immigrants, is because their life sucks in their countries because of what the United States is doing. The tech bros have a very different priority. Their priority is we want inexpensive labor and highly educated, qualified American engineers can charge a hell of a lot of money to us. We got to pay them a lot to do the coding and the programming. It costs us a ton. And if we can import a bunch of English speakers from India, where there's almost it's the largest country in the world population-wise, they're educated, they're English speakers, but they're living in poverty and they would love to come to the United States and they'll work for $20, $30, $40 an hour versus $150 an hour. So we can really leverage their numbers to reduce our wages. That's the argument from Musk. Obviously, that doesn't sit well with MAGA. Any thoughts?
Yeah, we're living in a kind of an unstable time where people are moving all over the place because conditions are really bad and people are starving or getting killed by, cartels and all that. So people are moving back and forth between countries. I know it's a real problem in Europe. They're not used to having all these minorities, and there's been some reaction to that. Some of the countries are turning right, just like the United States is. So I don't, it's going to be a problem, and who's on top, who do we want, who do we not want, and we'll be fighting about that, I think, for a long time.
Well, I'm more sympathetic to the workers. I'm more sympathetic to the Steve Bannons who say this isn't right. We should not be providing these H-1B visas. I do believe in immigration. I think we need to have immigration reform. I think there should always be a path to citizenship. H-1B visas don't really provide that. H-1B visas are temporary work permits where we bring in, where the Disney, which has used them in the past, but now obviously Facebook and Tesla and others bring in workers. They don't necessarily have a path to citizenship. They can apply for a green card, but an H-1B visa does not, of its own, provide you with an opportunity to become a citizen. It's only if your sponsor, your company sponsor, your company that brought you in sponsors you, is the only way you can get that green card. And many of them won't. After a few years, they'll send you back to where you came from, and they'll bring in somebody else because they don't want you to be a citizen. It doesn't provide them with any benefits. I don't like the H-1B visa policy. That was a Hillary Clinton. She championed it. It was a big reason she lost in 2016. I just have one other point here, Arlen, and I show this up here. The author of the piece, James Pogue, appears, though he tries to be a straight shooter, I think he's clearly sympathetic again to the tech bros, to the H-1B visa. He calls it a bilious, meaning nausea-inducing debate. There's the MAGA people are just motivated solely by racism or xenophobia. But he also diminishes or tries to reduce the argument of the folks who say we shouldn't have those H-1B visas, say, well, they care about a pre-1960s America, the values of the West. But I would say maybe they just care about getting paid a living wage. Maybe they just want to be in a society where work is fairly valued.